Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all my Fluffal Yugioh deck profile for post Dual Overload and for Master Rule 5. Wanted to do an update to the Fluffal deck. We did receive a new fusion monster in the Dual Overload booster set. It's a really awesome deck focusing on fusion summoning out a bunch of different Fright Fur monsters using your Edge Imp and Fluffal monsters, with the main focus being fusion, and now with Master Rule 5 being able to summon fusion monsters in the main monster zone without the need of a link monster. I wanted to show the basics of the deck and also just the new focus on an all fusion extra deck instead of having to rely on any link monsters. I definitely think it's a more fun version of the deck, just having all the different Fright Fur monsters to summon out. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So, for the Fluffal monsters, I'm running 3 Fluffal Bear. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to set 1 Toy Vendor directly from your deck to your spell and trap card zone. You can tribute this card, then target 1 Polymerization in your graveyard, add to your hand. You can only use 1 Fluffal Bear effect per turn, only once that turn. Most of the time with Fluffal Bear, I use the Toy Vendor search because Toy Vendor definitely does help to set up a lot of our different plays, including the Fluffal Wing play, and then just giving us more and more draw power, along with Fluffal monster setup in the graveyard for our different fusion summons we can do with all of our different Fright Fur cards. And I'm also running 2 Fluffal Dog. I thought of running 3. If I were to run 3 Fluffal Dog, I'd probably take out a 3rd copy of the next card I'm running. But with Dog, when this card is normal or special summon from the hand, you can add 1 Edge Imp Sabers or Fluffal Monster from your deck to your hand, except Fluffal Dog. You can only use this effect of Fluffal Dog once per turn. So being able to add Edge Imp Sabers definitely does help because of the fact that with our new Fright Fur monster, Dangerous Fright Fur Nightmare, you need Edge Imp monsters and 2 Fluffal monsters, along with all the other different Fright Fur monsters needing a specific type of Edge Imp monster. Being able to search out Edge Imp Sabers especially helps for a good majority of all of those different, fusion summons. So Fluffal Dog search definitely does come in handy at times for that. Along with that, I'm also running 3 Fluffal Penguin. During your main phase, you can special summon 1 Fluffal monster from your hand, except Fluffal Penguin. This effect can only be used once while this card is face up on the field. If this card is sent to the graveyard as fusion material for a fusion of a Fright Fur fusion monster, you can draw 2 cards, then discard 1 card. You can only use this effect of Fluffal Penguin once per turn. So you can even special summon Fluffal Dog from your hand, and then you're able to get the search because Fluffal Dog specifies when it's normal or special summon from the hand, meaning a special summon will work just as well as the normal summon. And then having that option gives you more and more special summon options and draw power when you use Fluffal Penguin for the fusion summon. And since Dangerous Fright Fur Nightmare needs 2 Fluffal monsters, you'll have the requirements right here after you get the search with your Fluffal Dog for Edge Imp Sabers. But if you wanted to drop Fluffal Penguin down to 2, try out 3 Fluffal Dog, you can also give that a try, just being player preference at that point, preferring which one over the other they like. And probably one of the most important ones for the Toy Vendor setup is Fluffal Wings. With this one, if this card is in your graveyard and you control Toy Vendor, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 Fluffal monster in your graveyard, banish it, and if you do, draw 1 card. Then you can send 1 Toy Vendor you control to the graveyard, and if you do, draw 1 card. You can only use this effect of Fluffal Wings once per turn. So you get the 2 draws off of the Fluffal Wings effects, and then also additionally the search off a Toy Vendor when it is sent to the graveyard. So giving you 2 draws and a monster search. If you have your spell set up, you'll get a good amount of monsters in your hand for you to use for your different fusion plays. So you just have this set up all the time with your Fluffal Bear being able to search out Toy Vendor, Fluffal Dog being able to search out Fluffal Wings, and then just being able to use the Graveyard Banish effect for all the different setup for your draw power. And then for one of the one-ofs, I'm just running 1 Fluffal Owl, being a searcher when it's normal or special summon from the hand to add a Polymerization from your deck to your hand. And you can pay 500 life points to fusion summon 1 Fright Fur fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials. You can only use 1 Fluffal Owl effect per turn and only once that turn, but setting up the Polymerization or just the fusion play in general, if you already have the Polymerization hand, can help to set up one of your bigger plays to fuse with Fluffal Owl and then use Polymerization again to go into Fright Fur Sabertooth, depending on the play you wanted to go for. So I like to run this 1 Fluffal Owl, just being a text search also, and also being searchable for Fluffal Dog also. And for the Edge Imp monsters, I am running 3 Edge Imp Chain, probably one of the best ones in terms of search. When this card declares an attack, you can add an Edge Imp Chain from your deck to your hand, and if it's sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Frightfur card from your deck to your hand, being able to search out plenty of different ones, including your Frightfur Patchwork being one of the best searchers in the deck, or even your Frightfur Fusion for your graveyard fusion plays. Edge Imp Chain, gives you access to a lot of different search power for this deck that definitely needs it after you build up your graveyard with so many Fluffal and Frightfur monsters. And I'm running 1 Edge Imp Sabers. It's really all you need once it's set up in the graveyard. And once again, this one is searchable with Fluffal Dog. It only searches Edge Imp Sabers. It can't search out chains. So running multiple chain definitely does help there. And being able to, obviously special summon this back and then set up the top of your deck for Toy Vendor by placing a card from your hand on top of the deck and then using Toy Vendor to, properly reveal that card and summon it is an added bonus also. And to finish off, for the Fusion Monster plays, I run 3 King of the Swamp. The search with this one for polymerization is just why I like to run it, and being able to substitute for a, fusion material, so anything that properly lists, let's say Edge Imp Sabers, you can replace King of the Swamp for that play, or even Edge Imp Chain or one of the other ones. Definitely useful for those fusion summons. And I also run the 3 Ash Blossom, just a good hand trap to rely on if your opponent goes first, because a lot of times you do want to go second with this deck, being able to completely eliminate your opponent when you set up your Frightfur Wolf, and then go with your Frightfur Tiger, being able to get both on the field and then attack for multiple times with the Frightfur Wolf and destroy your opponent's cards with Frightfur Tiger. So being able to shut down a good amount of your opponent's plays during their first turn definitely does help with Ash Blossom. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. I run 3 Polymerization. It's your go-to fusion card in the deck. It's also searchable with cards like King of the Swamp or even Frightfur Patchwork. So having 3 of it just gives you the fusion options as well. And also, with Fluffal Owl having the different variety of searches, you'll almost always have this card in your hand since there's a good ways amount to search it out. And I also run the 3 Toy Vendor. This is your setup with Fluffal Wings and the search, but also once per turn you can discard 1 card to draw 1 card and show it. Then if it is a Fluffal monster, you can special summon 1 monster from your hand. Otherwise, discard the card you drew. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Edge Imp Sabers or Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand. So being able to search any of the Fluffal monsters definitely does help. But once again, it's the needed send card for your Fluffal Wings to draw 2 cards and then get the additional search from the Toy Vendor. Plus being able to discard cards like Edge Imp Chain, since it was sent to the graveyard, for those additional searches are an added plus also. And I also run 3 Frightfur Patchwork. We waited so long for this card. It's been out, I think, for a good year now. You add 1 Edge Imp monster and 1 Polymerization from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 Frightfur Patchwork per turn, but it's a +1 off of 1 card, giving you any of the Edge Imp monsters you need and Polymerization, giving you all that setup as long as you have your other Fluffal monsters to go for the fusion play especially. And I also run 2 Frightfur Reborn. You target 1 Frightfur monster in your graveyard, special summon it during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 of your banished Fluffal or Frightfur monsters, return it to the graveyard. So the banish for this definitely does help for the recycle power of cards like Fluffal Wings, being able to reuse it again if you don't open any other ones up, and then want to go for the Toy Vendor play if you were able to send another, Fluffal Bear to set it up, or even just draw into another Toy Vendor for that draw and search power. And I also run 2 Frightfur Fusion. It's basically the miracle fusion of the Fluffal deck. You fusion summon 1 Frightfur Fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials listed on it from your field or graveyard. You go and activate 1 Frightfur Fusion per turn, but this card is searchable also with Edge Imp Chain. So you're able to then also with Master Rule use the extra monster zone as an additional fusion spot, but then also use the resources you fused with, let's say, Polymerization in the graveyard to banish for Frightfur Fusion, going for a bigger amount of your plays also. And I also run 2 Instant Fusion. I don't know if anything's going to happen to this card post-ban list, but if it does, you can always try adding in an Upstart Goblin and an additional destruction card, like let's say Regeki, because you do want to go second a lot with this game in this deck. So making sure you destroy your opponent's monsters by adding in a Regeki is an added plus, and the Upstart is just the additional draw power to get to cards you need a little more faster. But with the Instant Fusion, it's just an easy way to get Frightfur Sheep out onto the field, giving you an additional monster to use to fuse fuse out into your bigger boss monster, Frightfur Sabertooth. That's why I like to run the 2 instant fusion as well. But once again, in the case that it does end up hit on the upcoming April ban list, you can always replace these for either 2 Twin Twisters or 1 Upstart Goblin and 1 Regeki as well. And to finish off these spells and the main deck, just 3 Call by the Grave. You really do need your plays to go through and hand traps that either stop draw power or anything like that. Draw and Lockbird, especially with this deck. Call by the Grave helps just to make sure you get your searches and draw and special summons consistently going. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. The new monster, I'm running 2 Dangerous Frightfur Nightmare. I do believe this was Sora's go-to monster in the manga, if I'm correct. You need an Edgent monster and 2 Fluffal monsters to make it. It gains 300 attack for each Fairy and Fiend monster in your graveyard during your turn only. When this card, Fusion Summon, destroys a card monster by battle, you can send Frightfur, Fluffal, and Edgent monsters from your deck to the graveyard, equal to the original level of the destroyed monster. And when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets this card in the field, quick effect, you can banish a Frightfur monster in your extra deck to negate that effect. So the recycle for the banished monsters will also help as well, but being able to have a negation effect in a Frightfur monster definitely does come in handy. Also relying on it for all the different plays to stop your opponent and getting a lot of power with late game setup also. And I also run 2 Frightfur Tigers. Having the attack gain effect and just the destruction effect off of Frightfur Tiger helps to clear your opponent's board and then go for the obvious swing when you use your Frightfur Fusion to go into your Frightfur Wolf, which I'm also running 2 of this card. Number of attacks each battle phase up to the number of fusion materials. So with just an Edgem Sabers and 1 Fluffal monster, that's 2 attacks right there. If you add additional ones, you'll have the multiple attacks to go for game against your opponent. And I also run 2 Frightfur Sheep. If it battles, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end of damage step. And when it's destroyed by opponent's card, either battle or card effect, you can special summon this card. If you do, it gains 800 attack. You can only use this effect once per turn, but still very, very useful just to get a monster back onto the field and being able to swing into your opponent with no fear of any of their cards. And I also run 2 Frightfur Kraken. You need an Edgem monster and a Fluffal monster to make this generic fusion for Frightfurs, and also being able to swing with it directly, attack, and then switch to defense makes it a very defensive card also for the deck. And the boss monster is Frightfur Sabertooth. You need a Frightfur Fusion monster plus 1 or more Fluffal and Edgem monsters. If all Frightfur monsters you control gain 400 attack, and if it was Fusion Summon using more than 1 of the fusion materials of the 1 or more, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Boosting this up with Frightfur Tiger especially, and then just being able to have it on the field and not have to worry about anything except, obviously being Kaiju'd or something like that to rely on also. And then for some of the one-ups for the fusions, I run 1 Frightfur Bear, 1 Frightfur Chimera, and 1 Frightfur Daredevil. Just additional options for the search, even with Frightfur Bear being able to have the Fluffal Bear requirement be replaced by King of the Swamp if need be. If you wanted to try out I know that the Bahamut Shark play with Totally Awesome is also a thing, going with the plays for Fluffal Penguin, where you can overlay 2 Fluffal Penguin into Bahamut Shark, and then special summon Totally Awesome onto the field. You can take out these 2 cards for that Exceed Monsters spot in the extra deck if you wish, but if you want to stick with more of the fusions only for this, you can go with this extra deck for it. But the main play that I'm definitely happy about, not having to rely on Link monsters anymore for that play, is just being able to go into our main destruction play and OTK our opponent is using the Fluffals given to us, and then also relying on Frightfur Fusion. So if we open up at least, I would say, the 2 of the Fluffal monsters, even just the Fluffal Dog and 1 other Fluffal monster, and a Frightfur Patchwork, you can activate the Frightfur Patchwork and be able to search out the Edgem Sabers, and then also the Polymerization to our hand, definitely giving us the plus with these 5 cards in hand. And then normal summoning your Fluffal Dog onto the field will give you another search, which you can go into any Fluffal monster you want for that. And then using those plays, if also you'll want to make sure your opponent goes first, because then you'll have the board to clear with them also and be able to attack for game. Obviously, you'll fuse into your 4 cards that you have in your hand and summon out in the main monster zone now your Frightfur Tiger, which can destroy 4 cards since you use 4 monsters for the fusion play on your opponent's field. And with all the Fluffal and Edgent monsters in the graveyard, you'll then be able to Frightfur Fusion by banishing the 4 to go into your Fright for a Wolf, which can now attack 4 times since you use 4 monsters of fusion summoning, being able to attack for 8,000. And then the Fright for a Tiger is just there as an added plus for power, and also if you just need 1 more additional attack for your opponent. Let's say they had 5 cards and they have a monster on their field that you need to swing over with Fright for a Tiger, and then Fright for a Wolf can finish off. And these both can be placed in the main monster zone, which is what I really love about this deck, going back to full power with Master Rule 5. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.